In the cut-through world of MMA, some practitioners of Aikido believe it is the prime martial art above all others. Based on the principle of redirecting opponents' moments, Aikido trainers want you to think it is the best discipline for self-defense. But there have always been those who believe it's a made-up style used for fancy choreographed demonstrations. What happens when these self-proclaimed Aikido masters decide to prove that the fighting style works? In our first instance of Aikido masters facing off against real fighters, we get to see what happens when a self-proclaimed Aikido master decides to disrespect a trainer at an MMA gym. In most cases like this, the arrogant challenger is laughed off, but this trainer is fed up, so he decides to teach the Aikido specialist a lesson. After a few seconds of getting humiliated, the challenger was ready to call it quits, but the trainer wasn't yet done with him. You could tell he was seriously examining his life choices after getting destroyed in the spar session. Next up, we see what happens when another self-proclaimed Aikido master gets cornered in a ring against an MMA fighter. The viewers were all looking forward to an epic fight, but all they got was humiliation that lasted only 10 seconds. As crazy as most Aikido moves look, they are nothing compared to the moves dished out by a master named Guy Savelli. In 19 seconds, the master pulls off what he calls the triangle of death using pokes and swift body movements. Anyone trained in the more popular disciplines will tell you that pokes aren't allowed, but Master Savelli has no problems with it. Blink and you'd miss it, which brings us to the next Aikido video you need to see. Anyone who watched Steven Seagal take on two Russian Sambo fighters might feel like it's the ultimate skill to have. But watch what happens when an Aikido master steps in the ring with a kickboxer. The fans watched in shame as the Aikido master realized he didn't stand a chance. Aikido masters love to talk about how the discipline is great at stopping attackers with knives. But watch what happens when an Aikido practitioner tries to use those skills in an Aikido tournament. The unarmed Aikido master tries to defend himself against his opponent, but fails after he gets stabbed multiple times. The second time around, he manages to avoid getting struck a few times, but ultimately gets poked by his opponent. The Aikido master finally gets a takedown on his opponent after the third attempt, but anyone who knows what a knife fight looks like won't be convinced of its effectiveness. After seeing how badly the Aikido master was in that tournament, we need to see how successfully defending against a knife attack in Aikido looks like, and this clip shows us exactly that. It first starts out with flowing movements to always keep the knife away from your vital spots, and the Aikido master then moves on to another technique which leads to disarming the attacker. This Aikido master's movement was totally different from what we saw from the practitioner in the tournament. You could tell that this self-proclaimed Aikido master from the first video didn't know what he was doing. But what happens when you actually put a certified Aikido master in a ring with a Jiu-jitsu master? Right off the bat, you could easily tell that the Jiu-jitsu black belt in blue was clearly more efficient with his moves and strikes. He was aggressive and struck with precision, whereas the Aikido master in white often relied on choreographed moves that didn't always work out. This sparring session revealed which style would be more effective when used out in the real world. But what happens when a trained MMA fighter decides to challenge students at an Aikido dojo? We simply get a glimpse into why Aikido doesn't work when facing fighters of comparable skill. As if getting floored wasn't enough, the Aikido student decides to go for a second round, and the result is another swift humiliation. In the next clip, we have a tournament where another self-proclaimed Aikido master has to go up against a Chinese MMA fighter. Unfortunately for the Aikido specialist, his opponent didn't get the memo and he went into the fight ready to draw blood. The Aikido master tried to dish out some attacks on his second attempt, but he was up against an opponent who only cared about knocking him out. After watching the Aikido master getting smacked around, the ref had enough and called it a day. Muay Thai fighters are some of the most dangerous fighters out there. So when this Aikido practitioner walked into a Muay Thai gym to spar with their best student, it was always going to end badly. The Muay Thai fighter gave him a glimpse of what to expect, but the Aikido fighter folded under the pressure. Despite almost getting knocked out, the Aikido practitioner tried to keep up, but the referee had to stop the fight before he got hurt. Another Aikido master had the opportunity to defend the discipline's honor against a kickboxer at an MMA tournament. Even though the kickboxer was a bit smaller, he was confident enough to put the pressure on the Aikido master, forcing him to throw punches. Once the kickboxer was sure that the Aikido specialist couldn't keep up, he went all in for a painful dose of reality. We've already seen what happens when Aikido masters go up against BBJ fighters, but nobody could have expected what happened when an Aikido practitioner decided to go against a Judo master. It started out like any other fight with both practitioners gauging their opponents. But once the Judo master got a grip, everything went to hell. The Aikido fighter still believed he could pull something off, so he got off the mat to try again. And this is where things got a lot more interesting. We see him try to pull off those moves where they use their opponent's momentum against them, but the Judo fighter wasn't having any of it. At this point, it was clear that this Aikido fighter wasn't skilled enough to defeat the Judo fighter, but he wasn't going to let that stop him from trying one more time. But the results were the same. Since Aikido didn't work against Judo, an Aikido master went to a tournament in China to show his skills to the world. Unluckily for the Aikido master, his opponent was a boxer known for brutal striking. The Aikido practitioner went in strong and even managed to survive a few hits. You'd think the rest of the fight would be that close, but once the boxer unleashed his string of attacks, it was over for the Aikido master. Next up, we have an Aikido master who was so good he didn't even need to touch his students to knock them out. It's almost like the master had an invisible force so strong that his students couldn't stand upright in his presence. It didn't take long before fans wanted to see him go off against an MMA fighter, so they quickly organized a fight to test his skills. Once the fight started, fans quickly realized that his invisible force didn't work on the MMA fighter, and the Aikido fighter couldn't keep up. After getting slapped around, the Aikido master got up for the second round, and this time around, he got a healthy dose of reality. Just like the Aikido master with the invisible force, another self-proclaimed Aikido prodigy believed he could defeat anyone without even lifting a finger. Watch what happens when he meets someone who hits back. And if you thought the Aikido master with the invisible force was bad, wait till you see what a black belt named George Dillman can do. You just heard him brag about being able to knock out the biggest person in the world. But what makes Dillman special is that he doubles down on more crazy things. For George Dillman, using his arms is optional because he has access to something called chi, and with it, even an Aikido master can't lay a finger on him. Since we've all seen what happens when pro fighters take on Aikido specialists, have you ever wondered what would happen if they were to fight a regular rugby player? The overweight rugby player charges in without thinking things through, and the Aikido master gets demolished like a helpless child. The second time around, the Aikido specialist tries to initiate contact, but the rugby player is unfazed, and in the shuffle, he wrecks the Aikido master again. Somehow the Aikido master couldn't pull off the fancy flips Aikido is known for, and this just piles on to what we've seen earlier. If you love MMA and fight breakdowns, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss out on our next video.